Thank you thank you to the Republican women for hosting, and also for the citizens that have come out today. I know that your time is very important, and it's an honor and it's humbling that you took your time today to come here and talk and listen to us talk. I am Doug Underhill. I'm going to keep my bio short because we've only got 10 minutes to work with, and also get a little bit late started. But most of you have already heard it at one place or another. Is that a little bit better for anybody? You guys hear me in the back okay? All right. If you want to get more details about the bio, obviously the website, Facebook page that can give you that information. In a nutshell, I am the son of a Navy chief. I grew up around the world as a Navy brat, and I knew, as much as I enjoyed the travel, I really wanted a different lifestyle for my kids. I wanted them to know what it is to be a part of the community, and for that reason, when we got orders here to Escambia County, we needed to put our roots down because it wasn't going to get any better than this. I enlisted in the Navy in 1991 and spent when the first Gulf War broke out. Of course, the Gulf War was over before the ink was dry on the contract. I spent the first 2 years of my Navy career at Defense Language Institute in Monterey, California. Arduous duty, I can assure you. Studying Arabic language and culture. And got my first real bite at the Pensacola apple when I came here as a naval air crewman. One quick look at Escambia County, and I knew that eventually this would be home. In spite of the fact that I also learned about Pensacola's fire ants doing push-ups on the beach over there at Naval Air Station. I traveled around the world for the next decade as an Arabic linguist working for the Navy, and met my wife when I was stationed in Washington, D.C. area. Our first date, she cooked me homemade jambalaya, homemade yeast rolls, and a pitcher of sweet tea, and quite frankly, I was hooked from the get-go. Two Southerners living in Washington, D.C. is like a fish on a bicycle. It just doesn't work very well. So when we pulled off of the Beltway for the last time, coming to Pensacola for Officer Candidate School, we literally laughed out loud, putting Washington, D.C. behind us and on our way to Pensacola. We lived in the Perdido Key area ever since. And although the Navy has kept me on the road quite a bit, Wendy and the kids kept my anchor right here in Pensacola. I traveled around the world working as a counterterrorism officer and also as a cybersecurity officer. With the exception of a very brief stint building moderate income housing in 2006 to 2008, my entire professional career has been spent in defense of the nation in one way or another. I am currently the executive officer of the Reserve Unit on Corey Station in my military capacity, and in my civilian capacity, I lead a phenomenal group of some of the best cybersecurity people in the world, working for Department of Homeland Security also on Corey Station. The big question, of course, is why are you running? And I'm running because I know that Escambia County should be prosperous. Quite frankly, we just have too many resources and too much available for us here for us to be at the bottom of the pile in terms of counties here in Florida. When I look at the things that keep us in this cycle of failure here in Escambia County, the primary causes that I see is a lack of leadership and a lack of cooperation and coordination. I have demonstrated through my life as a military man, both on the enlisted side and in the officer side, the ability to form teams, cooperative teams, collaborative teams to work together toward excellence. So I believe that I have the skill sets that are necessary to do that now for the county. When we work through hard problems together, it bonds us together. It builds the bridges that bond us together, not just for that problem, but also empower us as a team to face the next difficulty or the next opportunity. Soldiers and sailors, when they come together as a team and they go downrange, they refer to this as battle buddies. And there are very few relationships that are as solid as that of a battle buddy who's been through the crucible together. We rob ourselves of the opportunity to bond as a community if we don't work together as a team. And if our leadership is either yelling at one another or yelling at the citizens for asking the basic questions. Our job as leadership should be to bring people together and empower everybody, every stakeholder in the county, to be a part of the solution. When there is collaboration, there is teamwork. Where there is teamwork, there is success, and success builds prosperity. Unfortunately, if you've watched Escambia County politics for any period of time, you have seen the politics of divisiveness. You have seen these actions that we take that turn people off, turn people away, and say that I can't be a part of this solution. And unfortunately also, if you have a phone, you have probably seen some of those tactics at play in the last week. Someone has certainly figured out that a vote for Doug is going to be a vote for change in Escambia County, and unfortunately there are those who have a vested interest in maintaining the status quo. Over the last week, we've seen a rash of illegal and anonymous robocalls that have addressed all kinds of different issues, accusing me of everything from tax evasion to a DUI, and just about every other imaginable thing. I haven't lived nearly an exciting life as those robocalls would lead you to believe, I promise. I won't dignify them with a response, but I will tell you this. I have been in uniform my entire adult life. I have had a top secret security clearance for my entire career. And what that means to you is that my actions have been under scrutiny by the federal government every day of my adult life. And all those actions, my integrity and my character, are constantly under scrutiny of the highest possible standards. There is one of those phone calls, though, that I would like to speak to, because it does have some truth to it. It says that I've worked with Democrats. Probably shouldn't say that around here. I just realized I'm wearing a blue shirt too, so maybe that's probably. Look, Democrats make up 36% of this county. Yes, I've worked with them in the past, and yes, I'm going to work with them in the future. They are a part of the solution in this county. And one of the things that I think is going to happen is they see an accurate demonstration of our conservative leadership principles and values and the success that comes with that. I think a lot of those folks that are converting from D to R in order to run in this race are going to end up staying on the R side as well. Unfortunately, that call digresses into some juvenile name calling, and it says, "Stay away from Democrat Doug." Folks, I'm as true Republican as there comes. At the very core of our values, there is nothing greater than the defense of this Constitution, the defense of this nation. I am the only person running in this race who has raised my right hand and taken the oath and then bet my life on the defense of this nation. That service has given me a true heart of service. I don't know any other way to behave. And it's that heart of service that has given me the endorsement of our sheriff, not only our sheriff, but also the Fraternal Order of Police and the Police Benevolent Association, which represents the men and women who defend and secure our lives and our property here in this county. Additionally, at the core of our values is the belief that consolidation of power in any one place puts our liberties at risk. I respect and honor the obligations of other elected officials that they have to their voters, and for that reason, when I see the malice that's been shown toward the ECUA and the Sheriff's Department, I say that's against our conservative principles. Now, we can certainly disagree, but we need to disagree as gentlemen and ladies, and we need to always focus on what the mission is, and that is serving our constituents. And that's why I'm actually very proud today to announce that Ms. Vicki Campbell from the ECUA has joined two other members of the ECUA board in endorsing this campaign. I'm also the only fiscal conservative who will be a diligent steward of your tax money. I will not fritter away your tax money on things like helicopter pads on firehouses that nobody asked for, $52 million four-lane highways on Perdido Key that the citizens have long been opposed to, as well as a prison campus that we're talking about now that doesn't even have the support or involvement of the Escambia County Sheriff's Office and the people that we're actually going to have to leverage and count on to make that successful. Finally, I'm the only family values conservative here who understands that gambling is bad for Escambia County. And I am going to stand side by side with Representative Mike Hill to make sure that the gaming industry understands that the welcome mat is not open to them here in Escambia County. We have better ways of creating the economic improvements that we need in this county than gaming. Escambia County needs conservative leadership, and we need it right now. We have three major crises in front of us in the form of the flooding, the jail explosion, and the pollution issue in Wedgwood. This should not come as a surprise to anybody who has been watching that these three issues have occurred. These are not a surprise to anybody, and they've been developing over time. If we have a steady hand at the helm and we apply conservative values, many of these issues could have been prevented, and if not prevented, then certainly mitigated. I have been the kind of leader that builds teams and moves us forward. I've done it in the military, I've done it in civilian service for Department of Homeland Security, and now I stand ready to do it as your next representative for District 2 here in Escambia County. Thank you very much for your time.
It's a privilege to serve you for the last almost 8 years. It's been an honor and a privilege, no matter how this turns out. It's always easy. Here we go again, Ronald Reagan said. Pick on the incumbent. There he goes again, talking about all the misgivings and wrongdoings. It's easy to take shots at the guy who's on the job and trying to do something good. You have to if you've got no accomplishments or direction of your own. You know, in the last 7.5 years, and my wife reminded me about this before, this is the chance where you get to brag a little bit about yourself. I'm not very good at doing it, so let me do it. $240 million worth of capital improvements in Escambia County District 2. We did consolidate the jail back into the county, not with the increase of $18 million the sheriff wanted, but with the same money. The blow-up of the jail, and something I won't talk about later if you ask me, is because I'm directed by the county attorney not to address the jail. It's still under an ATF investigation. I want to address the jail, believe me, but the campus we talk about kills 4 birds with 1 stone and and is a vision for the future. I'd be happy to explain it to you. We consolidated the library system before that as well. The library system was in pieces and parts, and it's really a good consolidation. I support functional consolidation, the merging of functions that are duplicative. We need to think about that at every level of government if we're serious about not raising taxes and paying down debt. We, in District 2 alone, we had over $18 million of drainage projects. These drainage projects were ironically very successful during the recent flooding of about 9 weeks ago. And ironically, there was no problem in those specific zones, but the problem was it worked well there and then flooded more egregiously other areas. The $10.5 million sports complex was a small sign of leadership that I know Ms. Vicki Campbell supported when I voted no when 4 other commissioners weren't in favor of it. The going forward with the sportsplex out on Bower Road. Technically, this was in Commissioner Wilson Robertson's area, and in the spirit of camaraderie and team play, I redirected $5.2 million of local option sales tax dollars to complement the commissioner's match of about the same amount of money, about $11 million, for a sportsplex that is bringing in people from around the world and a stimulus for economic development. And I'd be happy to explain why a sportsplex is a stimulus for economic development. And the Perdido Key Fire Station. The Perdido Key Fire Station is next to an event that's occurring in less than 4 weeks called the Kenny Chesney Concert. We had an emergency meeting out at the Visitors Center there this past week with over 30 people from Alabama and 30 people from Escambia County. We will have over 30,000 cars on that road within a 4 to 6 hour period of time. Traffic will be backed up almost 10 miles in either direction. We needed, thank God we have a helicopter pad, because life and safety is the oath of office I took, and that's the priority that comes first above anything else. Whether it's at 2 o'clock in the morning when Governor Scott called about this recent flood, asking, where are we ready to go? Do you want me over there, Gene? And I said, yes, Governor, we need you there here immediately. We've got a real major one on our hands. Or whether it is this concert coming up in a few weeks. We have to prepare for public safety. The DOT said to me, Commissioner, you tell the folks that this 4-laning of State Road 292, which includes Perdido Key Drive, which will extend all the way to Navy Boulevard eventually, in phases, is not your idea, it's mine. You tell the folks, if they're questioning you about the legitimacy of 4-laning State Road 292, that this is an absolute essential need for the public's health, safety, and welfare. Now, I'm not talking about turning it into a freeway like Orange Beach and Alabama side. I want to soften it. And we live out there too. I'd like to see help us maintain that village effect and that comfort of a community. That's why we need to have this road 4-laned, but softly, with sidewalks, bike paths, buried utilities. A 4-laning with a meter. Has anyone been to Pensacola Beach? That's 4-laned. How oppressive, how offensive is that to you? Thank God they have it. Or some of my opponents' staff members work for Julian McQueen. And they'd be stressed out to the max if they didn't have 4 lanes out there right now. It's a corridor passageway, not an isolated community any longer. And it's the gateway to Florida. Why does it look so trashy? We need it 4-laned, and we need it jazzed up as an accoutrement, as something we're proud of that welcomes people into the Western Gate to the Sunshine State, where thousands live the way millions wish they could. Now I'll digress for a second, and now give you my opening comments. My wife reminds me that on August 11th, it's our anniversary of 30 years, and we won't be. She also reminded me that 30 years ago we were at a Republican event, shucking clams in Torrington, Connecticut, and that we gave up our honeymoon on that day to take care of be at a Republican event, and we did make up for it. We took a honeymoon a few weeks later, but we're dedicated and loyal Republicans since day one. I even was part of the Young Republican group in that community, supporting the 18-year-old vote when it was moving from 21 to 18 at the time. But if you were to ask me where we're going, if you're asking me for a vision, the vision is not about what's convenient to me or what a few are going to tug me on the shoulders, on the sleeve to lobby me. You can't own me, but sell me. Give me your best shot and sell me hard on your position, and I'll be the best dog in the fight you've ever had and have been, and it won't cost you a dime. But the challenge is, in this position, I'm not going to play politics anymore. The politician will tell you what you want to hear. I'll tell you what you need to know after I listen carefully and learn about what it is that's concerning you. I'm not going to rush to judgment on issues for convenience and popularity, as evidenced by what I've been through in the last 8 years. And one thing that we did over those last 8 years that I hold dear to my heart is that we stayed on the high road through the whole time. We never took any low blows or went dirty against any candidate. I know some went against me, and we definitely did nothing like that in return. I feel sorry for Mr. Underhill's commentary that might suggest that I was involved in it in any way, and for that I feel sorry for you, sir, because I don't condone that behavior at all.
Thank you.
I don't condone it at all, and I wish you well. But I wasn't on the blogs or on websites chastising you the last 2 years the way you've been doing it to me. The fact is, I'm not dropping down to that rancor. That's why you won't find me on those websites. The fact is, we are a community of 300,000 people today and 600,000 people tomorrow. So when you ask me what I'm going to do when I spend your money, sell me, baby. I want to hear from you. But the fact of the matter is, when I use your money for anything in this community, it's not for the 300,000 people today, it's for the 600,000 people tomorrow. It's not about replacing the 12-inch pipe with a 12-inch pipe, it's about replacing the 12-inch pipe with a 24-inch pipe so we can plan for the future. And I'll need this cooperation from ECUA, which blocked us on the environmental issues with the mouse, and the sheriff who thought he needed $18 million to run a jail that we did at no extra cost. We were frugal and we were effective in the use of your money. And that's the dog you want in the fight. I'm a nice guy, and I like staying on the high road, and I'm anxious to welcome you to my Coffee with the Commissioner meetings every Monday and Wednesday. Monday is at Monday's at Trigger's Restaurant down toward Perdido on the old Gulf Beach Highway, 7:30 there, which was today. And then Wednesdays is at the Coffee House, get the names mixed up, right across from the new sheriff's substation we funded for him on Navy Boulevard, just next to IHOP. Thank you very much. Wow.
We got a couple to start off with. Okay. This question is specifically for Doug. How long have you been a registered Republican?
2 minutes. I've been a registered Republican since I was 18 years old. My dad was a Southern Democrat, and when I got old enough to actually look at what the party stood for, I said, Dad, I'm looking at these things, and you said you're a Democrat, right? He said, yes. And I said, but all this stuff on the Republican side, that's what you've been teaching me my whole life. Service to your country, all this kind of stuff. And he says, yeah, I know. I said, but Dad, I'm afraid I'm probably a Republican. And he said, yeah, I figured as much. So, answer the question is my entire life.
Mr. Valentino can answer that as well.
Real quick, I did in the introduction since 18 when I was able to vote.
Many years ago. Does 4-laning include the bridge in Perdido Key? Mr. Valentino.
Post Buckley and now Atkins Incorporated started on this project about 10 years ago, which is about 2 years before I got elected in 2006. The 4-laning was not the entire, it wasn't about Perdido Key, it was about a corridor of emergency access and egress to get out of this state during the time of a hurricane. The focus was on public safety. Focus was on public safety first, and DOT had originally planned a 4-lane road from the Floribama at the Alabama line all the way up to Navy Boulevard. We also have $12 million put aside for a redo of Navy Boulevard. Not all of you are aware of. We're going to use CRA money locally to do all Navy Boulevard from the base all the way up and then to the east towards the old Bahia Chico Bridge. That'll be done in 2 phases. But to answer your question, State Road 292, which includes Perdido Key Drive, will be in phases, 3 phases. Phase 1 will be from the Alabama line up to the Theo Bars Bridge. Phase 2 will be from the Theo Bars Bridge, Sorrento Road, continuing eastbound, almost up to Walmart. Phase 3 will be up the rest of the way up to Walmart and a little further east towards Pleasant Grove and the north and south on the Blue Angel strip there. Total package price, I've heard numbers of $52 million. Well, if you isolate Perdido Key Drive, that's probably true. The whole issue is around $130 million if we're going to do the whole package. But it will be in phases. And a second trestle at the Theo Bars Bridge, which means it's about $17 million. 2 lanes one way, 2 lanes the other way.
Mr. Underhill, what's your position on 4-laning Perdido Key Drive and why?
My opponent is absolutely right. This has been underway for a long time. There has been an effort underway to make that the highway a 4-lane. And the public opposition to it out on the Key has been underway just as long. The difference, unfortunately, is that for those of us out there on the Key and those that are opposed to it, we haven't really had a voice that would actually take our words and move forward. The problem is very simple. The words, listen to the words used, the Perdido Key Corridor Plan. Folks, Perdido Key is not a corridor, it is a community, and it deserves a community plan. That community plan has already been bought and paid for. It's called the DPZ Master Plan. Does it need some help? Absolutely. Is it perfect and ready to implement the way it is? No, it's not. But it is with the voice of the people with regard to the 4-lane is in the DPZ Master Plan. It's a great plan that actually looks at all of the problems, not just traffic, but a way to develop the island out that protects our way of life and our wildlife. DPZ Master Plan is collecting dust down here at the county offices because it was Andres Duaney was fired as he presented it because when he did the math, he could not find any way to justify a 4-lane today or ever. Thank you very much.
I got two questions here on gambling. Basically, one wants to know about gambling, and one is a little more specific. When all the evidence points to increased crime, once gambling comes to a community, how can you in good conscience advocate that gambling should come to our area? So I guess, what's both your positions, why you support or oppose gambling?
Mary Beth, what are the rules on a rebut to the last one? Yeah. Okay. I'll use part of the time if I can. I'd like to rebut the last comment. DPZ, Mr. Andreas Glenn, was fired, and it wasn't by me. I didn't know about it until after it happened. It happened because he violated his contract with the county. He wasn't supposed to be focusing on the four-laning, and we specifically asked him to stay away from it. We did so because the DOT was directly involved in it and told us to tell the design planners to stay away from it. The fact of the matter is, this is a corridor, whether we treat it as a treasured community or not. This community is also a gateway and an emergency access and egress for Florida. We must do it, and I've gotten word from the DOT secretary yesterday, and I'll have a formal confirmation hopefully this week in writing, that I will have 3, maybe 4 new crosswalks that folks thought would never happen on Perdido Key Drive, at the Floribama, one at Bellagio, and I'm not sure, I think the third one at the Chamber of Commerce. Okay, and the question you asked on the gaming, it doesn't matter what I think about gambling or gaming. It's a matter of really about what you think about gambling or gaming. I told the governor and I told other representatives that I support the notion of taking gaming forward to the citizens for a vote, that it not be a decision of 5 county commissioners as it was for the poker room at the Greyhound track. I don't believe we should be in the position of voting on this. We need a state policy from our state legislators on this that puts into motion a policy format that says, A, what's the revenue stream we're going to get out of such a thing if we had it? B, what is the encroachment, if you will, to the community? What are the zoning areas we would put such a thing in? Number 3, what are we doing to rehabilitate that 3 to 6% that are considered addicted to this terrible thing like alcohol and other drugs? I'm out of time. I have more to say.
Did you want to rebut the other question?
No, I think we can do that.
Okay. Then answer that.
I actually agree with my opponent that it is really not about his opinion with regard to gaming. But I also take that one step further, and with all due respect, Mr. Hill, it's not Tallahassee's opinion that matters either. It's the opinions of the citizens here, and that opinion has been stated over and over. We cannot roll out the red carpet and grease the skids for the gaming industry to come here, and then put it to a referendum at a time that is appropriate. The citizens have already spoken. Every poll that's done, every effort that we look at says that it's bad, that the citizens understand that this is a bad form of economic development for Escambia County. We are not a wealthy county, and let's think about what gaming does. It bundles up Escambia County dollars and sends them out of the county. That's not the kind of economic development we need. We need industries that bring dollars from outside of the county and put those into our economy.
Thank you. In Escambia County, do you believe it is doing well on crime or not well on crime? And how about poverty? Do you think it's doing well or not well? What's your position on that? Poverty and crime.
Well, gambling or no gambling, I don't know how worse the crime can be. The fact of the matter is we're one of the worst in we are the worst in the state and one of the worst in the nation. We need to change the focus onto economic development and bringing in good jobs. And whether it's gaming or anything else, you would decide, not me. It would have to have to get me to agree to it. It would require a dedicated funding source, unlike education on the lottery. This would require, from my point of view, a dedicated funding source targeted specifically to economic development. I want money going back into inducements and incentives for businesses to come to town. That is essential. Other communities are doing it. We need a dedicated funding source for economic development, and if it isn't gaming, let's find one. But we need it to bring the jobs in. Did I answer your question?
Your position on poverty and crime.
How much worse could it be? Ask Biloxi, ask Tunica, ask Atlantic City. Everywhere that gaming has gone in, the problem with crime has gone up. Not my numbers, not even Sheriff Morgan's numbers. Those come from the FBI Uniform Crime Report. It's a simple fact. The reality is that gaming actually plays on communities that have economic development woes. It plays on communities that have a cycle of poverty, because it offers you something for nothing, which is absolutely the worst kind of hope that we can give people. We have a cycle of failure in this county. We have a cycle of poverty in this county. Young people in the county, and particularly in parts of District 2, they don't recognize the fact that they live surrounded by excellence in the form of DHS's cyber capabilities there on Corey, or the Blue Angels, which everybody recognizes as an international symbol of excellence. The problem is that those kids can't see the first and second rungs on the ladder that will get them from the lives that they know into that type of a future. The way that we break the poverty cycle, and with it the crime cycle, is that we get those centers of excellence that are right here in our community, and we get those in the schoolhouse, we get those into those kids' lives. We have to start by stop pointing fingers. Yes, it's the parents' fault. Do you think those moms and dads want that kind of life for their kids? Absolutely not. It's the best they know how to do with what they've got. We need to show them that there's something better, and we need to show them that there's more that they have. We have the resources right here in District 2. Warrenton Middle School absolutely should not be a den of poverty. It should be a springboard to excellence for those kids.
What are your stance on public transportation in Perdido Key?
My stance is a mass transit system should have equity and balance through the whole county. And as Perdido Key grows, it needs to be part of that system. Mr. Hill helped me with a bill that did not pass, but I thank him for his help. It has to do with the Regional Transportation Finance Authority, which would have included a mass transit component. Perdido Key needed a bus route. Golly, the Floribama's got 60 of them chartered for the Kenny Chesney concert. But all kidding aside, if you want to isolate Perdido Key and talk about the isolation of Pensacola Beach, then forget buses. But if we, without our own control, see a growth going on in our community, whether we like it or not, don't you want your elected official to manage it effectively for you? I can't stop the number of houses some of the realtors choose to sell, but you can't have it both ways. I have a requirement to provide a mass transit component, just like a safety facility of the Perdido Key Visitor Center and Fire Station. Again, I say, we're a community of 300,000 people today. But if we're going to be a community of 600,000 people tomorrow, don't you want us envisioning and planning for that? Don't you want us planning for that future for the great-grandchildren of our great-grandchildren? That's what you want. I support the bus system for Perdido Key because it is a new technology. The first transit folks that we retained surprised the tar out of us. They turned around and moved to more efficient buses, smaller buses, Wi-Fi on the buses. Did you know you could use your Wi-Fi or your iPad in your home or in the condo and see, oh, the bus is 8 minutes away, I better start making it down the elevator. We don't have that today. It's underway. We have the group skips my mind, the advertising marketing firm. Is it Martin Mincy? Thank you. Because Barbara's on the Mass Transit Advisory Committee. That's true. And they have helped us with the new bus stops. The new bus stops at all 160 locations in the county will have new bus stops and a slab and a sitting area for the winter and the heat.
Thanks. As I said in my introduction, I am a fiscal conservative. I am a fiscal conservative because I, like the county and like each of you, we have budgets that we have to live on. If there is a need for a bus in Escambia County bus system running out to Perdido Key, then let's see the needs analysis that says there's going to be a ridership. Having empty buses running up and down the highway is of no benefit to anyone. We've tried this 3 times before this bus circuit has been turned on and off, and ridership was always dismal at best. And now we found ourselves in a position of giving away a gas card, and follow with me on this, guys. We're giving away a gas card to people who ride the bus, if they can answer some questions, gas cards that were intended to put heads in beds out on Perdido Key. Folks, there's no smart way to do a dumb thing. If it doesn't make sense by the math, then we don't need to write a check for it. This bus line will once again show very dismal ridership because we didn't establish a need. It'll show that dismal ridership, and then we're going to find ourselves once again in the position of saying, why are we running a bus route that's running empty out there when we don't have enough buses running to get people to work, to the doctors, and to their other appointments? Thank you.
What importance does education of children in our district play in your leadership, being that our school district is rated so low?
I have to rebut the last comment. There is a need. It was brought to the County Commission's attention by the Mass Transit Advisory Committee. 5 commissioners did not in a vacuum make a decision about bringing the routes to Perdido Key. It's part of the overall growth of the county. If it isn't serving us well, the First Transit experts, not me, I don't micromanage. I don't choose to micromanage. That's the difference between me and my opponent. I'm going to let the subject matter experts decide specifically the merits of it. About the children, I'm proud to say that this is the first time in the history of during my term of office I've conducted an annual workshop for the kids. Dean helps me with it. We have 20 to 200 kids in our chambers every year, and I do a class for 3 hours on democracy, on government at the national, state, and local level. I actually pick 5 kids from the audience and I put them up on the dais and I get them stirred up a little bit, and we get into a debate. Now, what are you going to do with this $50,000? Are you going to build a sidewalk over here, or are you going to worry about the senior citizen home over there? Which is more important to you? And I start throwing more of the issues into play and letting them debate. I teach them about Robert's Rules of Order and parliamentary procedure. Now, everything I just mentioned to you, I learned in high school. Our school system's not teaching it. Why are they in my chambers in the first place? We need to get our educational system in this community, which I have no control over. It's a separate tax item, in fact, on your tax bill, involved in bringing kids into the 21st century through innovative class techniques. But I'm not the superintendent of the school or the school board member. But I do set policy, and I can help the school board. And we did so by going into a joint effort on the sports complex on Bauer Road. We worked well together on the land acquisition, the land of the adjacent to Warrenton Elementary School, adjacent to where the fire station is, and in between's the new sheriff's substation. We worked well together to helping the kids there. We need kids involved. I've actually used Teen Challenge and the kids to help us out, and they come into my class, come into my office once a week, and we have little sessions in my office, and we're going to be doing this spring or summer, another class for the kids, for all the school system of Escambia County.
Can we cut the time to 1 minute? We're running into 1 o'clock.
Yeah.
That way it's 1 minute per person. So when I pull up the 1 minute timer, it's actually very slow.
Take some notes here. No, like I said, I respect everybody's time, so we can actually make this very short. Look, I talked about the cycle of failure. The cycle of failure begins in K-8 education, and there's something that you guys really need to understand about every person that I've been and talked to about this campaign. It's been a big surprise to me. And I'm going to use, since Julie McQueen was brought up earlier, I'm going to use that as an example, because this is happening everywhere. I go to talk to somebody about the hotel business. I make sure that I'm really, really smart on the taxes and the things that I think are important to them. You know what we're talking about within 5 minutes? K-8 education. Every single group that I've spoken to understands that this is where the real crisis is. This is where the cycle of failure begins, and this is where a new cycle of success also begins.
All right. Will you support raising taxes to fund the Perdido Key plan?
I'm not sure what the plan is, but there is no need for it. The comprehensive plan and the Perdido Key plan were established some time ago. They weren't put on the shelf, nor was Dwani's plan put on the shelf. The fact of the matter is, we looked at all these plans very well. I would not support any taxes, to answer your question. There's no need to. It's part of our operation of government. We just found $5 million a year for the next 2 or 3 years to fund all the detainees that have to be incarcerated outside of Escambia County. That money didn't grow on trees. We just got even more frugal about what we were doing in government to fund the incarcerated while this jail gets under construction.
No, I'm actually very opposed to taxes, and the reason that I'm opposed to taxes, or increasing taxes, is probably the same reason that most everybody else that I have heard discuss it is opposed to it. I don't feel comfortable that we're doing the best we can with the tax dollars that we're already raising. Now, we are looking at a very difficult time for this county, the 3 crises that I talked about in my introduction. Each one of these is going to be very expensive. It's going to be much more expensive than it would have been to prevent those things. We're coming into a period where we're going to have to really tighten up the belt and make some tough decisions. Before we talk about taxes, we are going to look at how we spend the money that we spend, first of all. And we're going to do that in excruciating detail. And once we've gone through that, then we're going to actually look at all the processes that we do as government. And we're going to ask ourselves, is that an inherently governmental function? Is that within our mandate to the voters to do that job? And if not, then we need to look at it in terms of the value that it provides for the voters, to make sure that that is in fact a priority that we should have. Only after we have been through that in excruciating detail and your elected officials have come to you and delivered to you that news, only then should we even begin to start talking about taxes. I'm very confident that if we'll do those 2 things and do them well, if we could find $5 million today, why didn't we find it before? If we do those 2 things and we do them well, then we don't even need to have the discussion about raising taxes. Thank you.
Excuse me, my name's Christina
Sure.
Halbert, and I appreciate you running these questions, but none of mine have been answered. We're fixing
Are
to
yours
do-
this one here?
This has everything to do with Warrington, and there's been a lot addressed tonight about Perdido, and I'd like to address this very quickly.
Okay. I think we've got
It
your
all
more.
has to do with poverty. and
Yeah,
the whole
they
nine
addressed your
yards.
poverty already in
Okay.
crime.
If you don't mind, everything from, I can't get the lawn mowed, over there on Grover side looks great, public safety. Point of order.
The thing is, we've already got that. We're getting to it right here. I think I've got 3 or 4 from you right here, but a lot of them are to do with poverty and crime, and they've already answered how they feel about poverty and crime. But we can talk. The beautification questions are on here. But the question that she had and a couple others did have was about the beautification of Warrington, grass not being cut, streets, sidewalks, neighborhoods. Do you guys have any positions that you'd like to share on how to make Warrington nicer?
Christina, you were in my office a few years ago after we completed Fairway Drive. I was very proud of that. We got the prisoners out there, and with no budget requisition, we used our existing resources, and we redid the entirety of your neighborhood. We created
The grass is the time over right now.
I'm talking about your neighborhood. Let's talk one at a time. On the issue of Barrancas, there was the Barrancas Revitalization Group that was taking the responsibility for the longest time to mow those center medians. And, it's easy to take shots at the incumbent because I can give you a few more things I've done wrong too, probably. If not, my wife definitely will remind me. But the fact is we've got hundreds and hundreds of good things we have done, including improving the community she lives in. Sodding, benches, a redo of the irrigation system, and that's just a small thing. We've put groups into all these nestled areas in Warrington to address a lot of the betterments. And I mentioned one earlier, I believe, and that's the big one that's coming in the next 2 years, will be the redo of Navy Boulevard. It's about $12 million, and we're landscaping the whole thing and groundscaping it. It's going to be controlled parking on the side, and even an incentive plan for storefronts, so that they can, all this hodgepodge of funny-looking storefronts, nothing looks like it flows. We're going to incentivize our merchants to try to get a consistency of look and feel going up and down Navy Boulevard. After all, it was embarrassing a few years ago when we had the King and Queen of Spain here, and they came down that road.
Mr. Underhill, if you'd like to address beautification of Warrington.
I'm far less concerned about the King and Queen of Spain than I am about the citizens that grow up and live here every day. As part of that thing that we were talking about with the kids, they don't know, if you grow up in Warrington, you don't know that you're growing up in a center of excellence. I drive down Warrington Boulevard every day, and I see the sign that says the Warrington Boulevard Beautification Project. The signs that are in the median strip, take a look at them. Letters are falling off, paint's all chipped up. Okay. We have this focus on big projects. And it's funny how politicians, we always seem to measure things by what we spent, not by what we achieved. We're focused too much on the big projects. We do not focus on taking care of the things that we already have. These are the basic rules that we learned in fourth grade, right? Take care of your toys and you'll have nice things. We need to be focused much more on these deferred maintenance issues, cleaning up the communities. That's going to be a big part of how we tell kids and tell folks that this is a place that it's not only great to be from here, it's also great to be coming here and staying here. Thanks.
Okay, well, we're running out of time. I wanted to give them a little extra time since it took a while to eat. But I'm going to give them each a minute to give closing remarks. There are a couple other questions. Feel free to ask them afterwards, but I don't want to keep you all here too much longer. We'll start with you, Mr. Valentino.
There's a story about a young boy I was told about who was about 8 years old, and he went in to visit his grandfather with his father at the bedside. Now, for some it might be humorous, but for me it's quite serious. This boy went up and saw his grandfather dying, and that boy was promising his grandfather that he would serve his country. He was about 8-year-old, young little punk. He was just not barely paying attention, but his father was crying because his parting words of his father with his grandfather were obvious, and that boy was too young to know the difference, but his grandfather was dying at the time. The grandfather looked to the young boy and he said, "And you," in broken Italian, "you serve your country." Yeah, Grandpa, okay. Did you hear me? You serve your country. You promise? I promise. That boy stands before you right now, and I made a promise to my grandfather I promised I would keep. Maureen and I are big contributors to this community because we love it, and we'll be here until we die. I don't need the job, I want the job. If I'm doing something wrong, the door is wide open. Come in, I welcome your constructive criticism. But hurtful commentary is just not necessary. I don't do it to others, and I don't want it done to me. I will be there for you, whether we agree or disagree on issues, through thick and thin. You've got experience of hurricanes, tornadoes, floods. Oh, by the way, a BP oil crisis that we didn't have a manual on the shelf to follow. We've handled more emergencies, and I commend my aide, Dean Kirshner, because contrary to my opponent, we have been totally transparent and responsive to you at the grassroots level. Rudyard Kipling said, "Walk with kings, yet not lose the common touch." Deal with the big players and know how to do it, but don't be distant from the grassroots. I hope you see this the next 4 years in our campaign, in our term of service. Thank you very much.
Thank you again for everybody for your time. Very much appreciate it. If you listen to some of the things that you heard today, what you heard a lot of is that we need to get a 4-lane, for example, because FDOT says so. Some things, well, understand the people can't say what happens because if there's somebody else or some other power greater than us that tells us what things should be here. Well, the school system, that's not really my purview. And while that's true, we seem to have misunderstood. I think there's a real misunderstanding in America how the org chart in a democracy works. Okay? In the org chart of a democracy, the citizens are at the top of the org chart. It's the upside down pyramid, and those of us who choose to present ourselves as your leaders, we serve you. It's not Tallahassee's job to dictate to us what our communities ought to be like. It is our job to impress upon Tallahassee what we need from them to have the community that we want. It is very hard for me, having spent my life in uniform, it is very hard for me knowing men who did not come home. It is very hard for me to call being a politician service to my country. I certainly intend to serve you in this position as your county... Sorry, excuse me. I should stop talking about those things. I certainly intend to serve you, but service, by definition, means that you do the hard work and you suffer the pain, the blisters and the bruise. Okay? Citizens, you have absolutely every right, and I will say that you have a responsibility to hold me accountable in whatever way, shape, fashion, and form is necessary for me to hear you. I fail you if I don't hear you. You fail your community if you don't speak up. So I should expect that you will speak up during the election, you'll speak up on August 26th, and then I hope that you will also speak up every single day for the tenure that I'm in that office. Thank you very much.